This website's trying to dox me, by the way. Before we start.
Why would you say that? You explicitly told me not to point it out.
Well, basically, I've got like the window capture set up, so it's like very, very contained. There's ads everywhere. This website it's a very cool like tool, but it's also riddled with ads, which is fine. I mean, I think when someone makes something like this, they should be able to earn money from it. I guess. And that's sort of how that's how I view our channel as well. It's like I guess you should have to make money from this. I guess.
But it needs to be fairly unobtrusive.
Yeah, although I don't know if we are. I think some people would say we're not unobtrusive.
Shush. We're talking about the Steam charts.
The numbers, today. Mason.
Yeah.
What do the numbers
mean? They mean?
In lieu, well, not in lieu of, in light of result of the maintenance update, which is why I guess this works. I think the interesting thing is, and maybe I just conjured this up out of my ass just so we had something to do that wasn't what it was originally going to be, because it wasn't too hot on just like, let's just read some comments, which we're going to be doing something like that afterwards, but I don't know if there's any more sense to doing this a bit later. That's the thing, but you know, because I don't know if Xbox has or console has any bearing on these numbers at all. This was a week after the maintenance update launched on Steam, which you'd think which to me is like, that's fine, because also it should represent the culmination of like the it being launched combined with the height of its like sort of marketing and presence in like the community, as people understanding that updates just come out. So this should represent the height of what the maintenance update is going to do the past week, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and I think there's two things in that. Right now, the Xbox version or like console version shouldn't matter like at all, because not only will it not be represented in this, but it's also not out yet. So this is exclusively the Steam numbers and what the effect of these updates are, or this maintenance updates is on that, which obviously means the numbers are less than what they actually are. Like there's probably more than 17,000 players in a 24-hour peak or whatever, right? Because it doesn't include the console versions, but the numbers and patterns we see on the PC, like on here, will probably mirror on the console version.
Yeah, I do want to point out,
like, if we see a large increase here, then it'll probably be a large one on Xbox when it comes out.
We're basically hoping that it's comparable, that these numbers will roughly be the same as like across consoles. Isn't that actually sort of the sort of the principles we work on? It's sort of roughly the same. Steam to all consoles is like the same.
Yeah,
not just Xbox. Which would actually make it like kind of low. But I want to, because honestly, this section doesn't have too much bearing. I mean, it does have the last week in it, I suppose, and you can sort of see things. I guess the peak actually over the last week was right here, but I want to quickly focus on the current player count. You think about it, I don't think we really know where the most players are in the world. I think you would normally assume that it's America based on any game, but I think Deep Rock has like a very I don't know, European appeal. I feel like there's a lot of European people play Deep Rock. I feel like it could possibly be pretty like evenly split between like America, Europe, and Asia, to be honest.
Yeah, which is still like more than usual. It normally isn't balanced, I don't think.
Yeah, but either way, America's still like a big part, and I think the general, very rough sort of time difference is that it's just the morning in America right now, isn't it? Basically, as of recording this,
it's like, I think I go by, 4 to 6 hours behind they are normally.
Average time in Asia.
They'll probably be ahead.
Okay, I mean, it's very, very trivial, but based on that, they're also behind as well. So all I'm saying is that just based on right now, it's being roughly midday on the day that we're recording this, which will be the day this comes out as well. About 15,000 people playing right now is pretty strong, basically. That's all I'm saying. It's just pretty decent. They should... I'd be happy with that.
Well, I think, I don't know. I mean, look, these numbers are good with... I don't know. Like, it's not really a significant number because you want to generalize it a little bit more. But like, we will. The main thing is to compare it now after the update / the update to before. Right, that's the goal. That's the aim.
The
See
egg.
how much the maintenance patch kind of pulled players back in, essentially.
Yeah, we'll probably go
Like
up
reinvigorate.
to. Well, we'll sort of use these. I think. I don't think we want to use the 48 hours as much because that's not as that
Okay.
doesn't really tell us anything. 7 days, so roughly goes back to the 18th is 2 days after the update. But I'd
It's like
imagine
the
that is
weekend of the update.
probably the peak. If that's not the peak though, it would have been slightly higher on the day, higher than 20,000, which is okay. That's the thing. The peak that, for example, and we're gonna have to bring in sort of the stuff below, I guess, pretty soon. But the truth is, the peaks of the seasons have been much higher, and I think this is probably going to be the Steam peak for the maintenance update. And that sort of just tells you the difference in the type of update, which is something we want to drive home, not as a negative, but just as a fact. In the fact that something that Ghost Ship knows, obviously, is the fact that these updates are very different to each other. Seasons and maintenance updates are a very different kind of thing. But they still took the right approach with the maintenance update. In terms of just having a trailer, for example. But obviously, there's nowhere near as much to market it through, and it's just not going to hold as much weight to wider audiences, which is a really interesting conundrum, I imagine, for them. I don't know how they would feel about the fact that they're just probably not going to bring in many new players. Like 20,000 to me suggests, as sort of the peak for this update, suggests that's probably just contained within people. That's probably not any new players, I'd imagine, to be honest. I don't know.
I think. Well, I agree with the point, but there's definitely a new player in there. There's probably a new player to the game every single day.
But how much? Well, how much is this update doing, if anything, to like elevate that or accelerate it?
It's clearly not meant to, right? That's like it's in no way, shape, or form gunning for hey people, come on our game like season 3. Like that's clearly the biggest thing it did. Which, if you want an example of what season 3 did, just from the screen you're looking at now, you see that all-time peak number.
Yeah, we don't need to go back.
That was season 3.
We don't need to go back a year, because back a year would take us back to season 3 exactly. What it should do. Although this is kind of weird, taking us to the beginning of the year. Either way, if we were to go back a year exactly from like about now, we'd be pretty much in the peak.
Just click all.
Oh, yeah, we can find it. It's right here.
There it is.
November 2022.
That is when they made an update that screamed to people, play our game.
Hold on, I want to show this again, because obviously it is really interesting. So this is season 4, 35,000, which is pretty good. But it's still the difference to me that's kind of funny is still the difference between season 2 and the others. Season 2 is the worst season, like in terms of this, and that's something we need to keep in mind. This is not like an objective measure of how good an update is. Obviously, I hope that was obvious from season 3 being the peak. Obviously, got season 1 here, a very respectable 4.1 thousand, 41,000, I should say, 1.5 thousand. Season 2 in May, 30,000. In season 3, 46,000 as the all-time peak, and then it's sort of the season 4 peak was still higher than the season 2 peak, but now we sort of face something that's completely different from seasons.
Yeah, clearly, it's like a whole new plateau. Like the amount of players that came on, just hang on, the amount of players that came on during season 3 retained. Like you can see how the plateau just went up a stage, right? And it is. The thing is, though, is it is going back down, right?
Well,
the
it's,
number of players that reliably play.
It should be
going down.
It should be stabilizing, right? Is what we should see.
That's the goal. That would be that's what we could hope for come this month.
So, would it be appropriate to say something like, if it goes lower than that, what's like? So, do you think there's any kind of appropriate threshold to sort of give? If it goes below this point before the next maintenance update, then there's clearly something wrong. I do think the next maintenance update will actually be kind of important, because if it doesn't have the same, you would expect them. What I would expect personally is for both maintenance updates to have like an equal peak that is relatively low, but I'd still expect it to be the same for both of them. And I think we should something that would be concerning if there was actually genuine drop off that the next maintenance update doesn't do anything to recoup, I guess. But obviously that's for a later date.
I think there's still a bit of I mean, there's stats that I'm looking at now that I don't think is even on the screen that is a bit unnerving. But just click like what's just the month, just and that should have the actual date release, right? Like like the thing. Click the month option. That should have
What, 1 month?
the yeah. That's it should have it, right? This is a bit sporadic, isn't it?
16th of
Yeah,
November.
but it
When you go
wasn't
to rough,
out then, yeah.
there it is. That's pretty much the update releasing. But
Yeah.
that's just sort of the day. That's pretty much every day. Some of these like days, like the rough peak of the day. In fact, there was a higher peak before the day of the update.
I know, which is that not a bit weird? Like there is no notable change. If anything, it's still downtrending.
A little
when the
bit,
update went
yeah,
out.
a little bit.
Like it, and it's slightly concerning, right? Like because I
But
think maybe you zoom
well,
out to 3 months. I think it's downtrending generally, right? Isn't it?
I wanted to look at 6 months because I don't know if 3 months would be useful, but 6 months will basically take us from season 4 to now. So this is a weird slide, isn't it?
Feels like it like averages it and then stops. As it
Yeah.
gets, like,
I mean, she
the
can't
3
be
month bit.
too accurate here, but between these 2 points is when season 4 released, and they have roughly the same peak anyway. Like it pretty much stays the same. 35,000 is roughly what it is for season 4, and then
Yeah.
sort of dips down to, I guess this is the lowest point roughly. Pretty much. I mean, like, you can argue a slightly lower point here, but I just mean in terms of the actual downtrend, sort of reaches its nadir, as it were, around September, which I think makes sense. I think September there was basically nothing going on. That would have been right before October. That would be before Oktoberfest, and also before any of the news related to this came out
Yeah,
as well.
that was the drought period. Like that time.
Exactly, it's just after, pretty much just after they come back from summer, so they have nothing like sort of ready to go yet or anything like that.
Yeah, they're not even streaming. Like Deep Rock is kind of dead.
Yeah, which is like, it's a trivial thing to think about, but I think if you were to be as obsessed with something as we are, you would sort of see a similar trend in pretty much any game. So it's not like this is not. I'm not saying this is really special to Deep Rock, but we're not talking about anything else. So it's kind of an interesting idea that the game does kind of die at a particular time every year, just on the dot,
Yeah.
and then comes back.
Well,
and that's
I guess
okay.
I guess the right way of putting it would be like hibernating, right? That it just
Yes.
like kind of snoozes, goes into rest mode, and then it'll like reawaken within a month. And then I guess this time around, the summer event occurs, like when they get back. So like.
Oh yeah, I forgot that it's like it actually happened when they came back, but I want to check that actually. I want to be very certain about this. So the summer event started early August. Started early August, which is when they came back actually, which is weird that they saved it for that. And I guess it's probably appropriate to say it didn't do anything. It just kept going down as it kept the same path basically throughout that, based on this.
Yeah.
Which that might say something about the events as well. I don't know. I mean, Oktoberfest is. I think that's actually is roughly when Oktoberfest is. September launch is September 14th. I'd say there's a small bump on Oktoberfest.
First 2, 3, 4, go forward a bit.
Oh, sorry, that's 23 is in 2023. I was reading that wrong. So
that bit is basically, that's Oktoberfest. Like, that bump.
And I think that might just be combined with growing interest around this time of year for Deep Rock, maybe. That's probably a suitable thing. I think a lot of people would remember, in the game's lifespan, it's the times that when it's had the most buzz is around this time of year, or it's sort of going into that era, going into that time of year when it's had the most buzz over the last 2 years. That maybe people sort of mentally or subconsciously prepping themselves, they're sort of drawn back to Deep Rock, and they see that there's a new event, and that works in its favour at the same time. But yeah, it's something that we considered, I think, when the maintenance updates were sort of made clear. Or actually, arguably before we really internalised that they were going to be doing maintenance updates, is the fact that we kind of not, I wouldn't say accepted, but there's definitely an idea that Deep Prog is probably going to be at a point that probably feels dead before season 5, and certainly before roll call. But what I think we need to keep in mind is that we're not going to know if that's actually the case, because I do think, based on what you've seen, the maintenance updates are at least going to maintain people. I think, based on what we're seeing.
Oh, from what we're looking at, it's kind of weird considering I think a lot of us we have said that it's an update, right? It is an update. It's adding stuff. It's changing stuff. It is cool. It's an update. Yet in the numbers, in no way, shape, or form represent it. As far as we can tell, it has done less than the Oktoberfest event visually, right? Which is odd. it's like what? There's a whole new system, like two new systems, kind of like the weapon maintenance. You can turn off the thing, like lots of things got changed, tons of weapon balancing, all that stuff, and the numbers don't seem to give a shit. Which
No.
means players as a whole don't seem to give a shit, which is not what I saw. The people that you see talking about it, they seem to give a fair amount of shit. Everyone's like, hell yeah, but it might just be that a lot of people just stopped caring. A lot of people have gotten burnt, and that's it. And they probably won't get the game out until season 5, and that might be what the numbers will show this time round and the next maintenance.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. If that actually plays a sincere role, like people actually getting burned from like the Roku announcement, and I think so. I think it'd be definitely wrong to disregard that as a possible factor, because it obviously is. But I do wonder how much that's doing. It's a combination. I mean, I don't think it's that specifically either. By the way, I do think what it is actually is season 5 being delayed, more specifically, and then I think that sort of just burns a lot of people. And I think the problem is, and I don't know how much this might be a bit more niche in terms of how many people this is sort of driving away, but there are definitely some people who just missed they just didn't get the memo about what's actually happening. I think there are some people who straight up don't know about the maintenance updates and just have closed themselves off from Deep Rock before finding out about them. Like, genuinely, I think it's probably quite a small number, but I think they're out there.
They watched the stream, saw that, because how many viewers watched that stream?
Yeah, so this is going to look very egotistical because I'm currently on. Oh dear. But yeah, this is the kind of thing that we should be looking at. What the hell is happening? Anyway, yeah, I did want to draw on sort of other things. I need to find Ghost Ship Games channel. Oh, I guess we can go live. Although it's sort of like a weird combination of the two. So okay, Ghost Ship Publishing on the Horizon stream, 28,000 views. It was on Twitch as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. There should be a VOD.
But there were also videos that sort of broke it down, which have, well, first of all, Rogue Core teaser trailer, 311,000 views, for example. And the Rogue Core showcase, 43,000 views. But then, okay, so I did want to look at this actually as well. Maintenance update trailer, about 200,000 views. And then we can find season 4 narrated trailer, 460,000 views.
Right.
There you go. That's something, I think. Because that's been pretty consistent. The actual main update trailers getting quite a lot of views. Also, I just noticed it actually isn't coming. Oh, it's not coming up because I put it in a separate browser. That's why.
Yeah.
Hold on a minute. I can fix this. There we go. Anyway, oh look, and this is actually really interesting. So season 3 narrated trailer, 371,000 views. We could even go back season 2, 312, and we'll go back to season 1 as well, 366. And then so they're all like roughly around 300,000 or 350,000, and then you jump to season 4 actually having the most views, probably on the channel.
Yeah, because it would have the most people looking forward to it. That's the simple fact of the matter, right? is that a lot of people jumped on at season 3, so they probably didn't even watch the trailer. They just saw the thing come out and started playing it. Meanwhile, this is the trailer that everyone that jumped on in a huge spike would see. Yeah, they, yeah, and obviously, yeah, it's gone down a fair bit to, well, yeah, most recent thing, the, and that, yeah, and that kind of paints the picture, really, right? People give less than half a shit generally.
I like how you're really
like,
capable of using any other term apart from shit.
yeah,
Could just say people will care less.
They care about half as less.
Half as much.
It's just, yeah,
actually,
as before, which is concerning.
And obviously, the conundrum there is this really doesn't have anything to do with the quality of an update. This is just to do with what type of content, and more specifically, I'd say what type of update. Because I wouldn't say what drew people towards season 4 or even 3 specifically was actually the type of content. It was more so the type of update that it was, and that does partially factor in the type of content. But I'd say that's more so on an aesthetic level. You know, season 3 wasn't bringing loads of people in because of actually what we were doing in season 3. Especially if you look at the actual response. You know, I wouldn't say much of that actually went down particularly well. I'd say it's literally just because it was really easy to prop up as something very new. And that's basically the fact of the matter is, maintenance updates aren't going to have outreach, and I don't think this is news to Ghost Ship though. But they just don't have outreach at all. They're not going to really go beyond people who already care about Deep Rock. And even then, due to the reason that they're happening, they might have already lost some of those people anyway at the same time. So they're actually catering to a pretty small group of people in the larger scheme of what they have access to in terms of an actual season. But like I said, I don't think this is news to Ghost Ship either. But I do wonder what they're thinking about that, especially in regards to doing another maintenance update, and how much they're going to push that. You know, you've got like the season 4 key art in the thumbnail, for example. It's really actually hard. I think the casual person, they're not going to distinguish how new really this is, or whether it's even something they should be like taking note of. You know?
Yeah, but I think this is where the next part of numbers kind of comes in. Thing under it. Right. So when was season? I don't even remember.
Well, we'll just say because I can tell
like
you.
June, wasn't it?
Season 4. Yeah, June.
Yeah. So I think the last week you did this was in like August and September.
Yeah, it was in August.
And obviously it went steadily downhill, which is normal, right? The numbers keep getting lower and lower. The further away from an update you get. And it kept going down a lot until now. But one number didn't come back up, which is what I find interesting. In the last 30 days, which obviously is November and would be the maintenance update, the average player number went up again, right? Not astronomically, but
that's like the only sign of it doing anything. Is the average player being higher than it was last month?
Downhill.
That's it.
It was 18 down to 14, down to 12, down to 10, and instead of going down to 8k, it shot back up to 12. But the average player number, that's that. But the peak player numbers, as you can probably tell, still went down.
It's actually it's the lowest it's been since before season 3. But here's the thing. Here's the really stupid thing about season 3. There's actually a big difference, between especially the average players. October 2022, 2022, 8,500 with 15,000 peak players. That's a pretty big difference still between the two Octobers, even though they're pretty much in the same position. Except the difference is, there was still that season 3 was being pretty heavily marketed back then, and around this same October, there's nothing going on really in the way of marketing or pushing something.
Yeah.
Really,
I just think it's just
there's been
the
an
remnants
overall
of season 3.
well, it's
About
remnants is
2,000
an
more
interesting
people.
word because I think there's a permanence to what it did, and there's just since season 3 the game's just been growing at a baseline.
Yeah.
So the baseline is higher than it used to be, but due to the nature of where the game's going at the moment, it's going to slope, or it's either going to slope or stabilize at a probably quite concerningly low point until season 5. And I don't know what the stabilizing point will be. I assume we'll see that around the next maintenance update.
I think we'll see it soon. Yeah, I mean, 'cause it went back up to 12K, which is obviously good, but it's probably not gonna last. I mean, like, if you know what I mean, like, it's not gonna be 12K and it won't keep going up or anything. It will go back down like it has been every other time. I think it's just a matter of how slowly it will go back down and how far down it can go before March, right? Which is that's what December, January, February, March.
Yeah, March is in terms of what? Because that's the next maintenance update. If that's what you're getting at.
That's the yeah. Is that the third month of the year?
Yeah, yeah. So
All right. So it's got 3 months, which
I'd say we've got about. I'd say we've got about three to 3.5 months until we know about that update, though. Based on where we're at in November, quite late November, I'd say. So, yeah. I'm saying basically by the end of February, we'll probably have some idea what's going on with that update. Which is, but that's obviously not going to have much bearing on the numbers. That's the thing. That's the difference between us. And I mean us in more broad, not just me and Tyler. I mean, arguably not even Tyler, but the difference between us and casual players is that they don't know what's going on on the Steam page, really. There's so much there that sort of keeps my attention on Deep Rock even when I'm not playing it, and most people don't have that. Most people.
And even if they did, you wouldn't be able to tell because, as you just said, your attention's on the game, but you're not playing it. Therefore,
there could easily be a hidden.
Would not be on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I mean, there's lots of games like that. There's lots of games I pay attention to that I'm not playing. Like Terraria. I'm not playing Terraria at the moment. But I know what's going on roughly.
But like the Deep Rock community kind of like reignited itself with this maintenance patch, but the actual player numbers has barely notably increased again.
Well, right? it's kind of like an interesting position. Dichotomy of like, yeah, these kind of updates, like it almost hasn't done anything. It's barely even brought people back, but it has still I guess not turned over a new leaf, but turned the tide of just sort of the conversation around the game. It's just a lot more positive. It's a lot more engaged, at least. I don't know if positive is exactly the right word, but it's a lot more constructive. People are just talking about sort of the game, playing the game, balance changes, all these sorts of things, what works and what doesn't. And it's just a bit of a difference to the sort of despair you sort of found after the Rogue Core announcement. So it has an effect in that sense, and that's why I'm saying these things, because if we only considered what we're looking at here, it does paint a slightly worse picture than it actually is. There's other things to consider, and sort of just the way people are talking about the game is a pretty huge part of that. At the same time, I think the conclusion is, and we already sort of knew that, is that it's going to be going down for a while, and even if it does stabilize, it will be like lower than Ghost might like. But like I already said, I think they know that for the maintenance updates, and I don't think the point of them is to like, "Ooh, everyone come and play our game." I think they're in a weird position where they know that they can't actually push Deep Rock too hard at the moment.
Yeah, and they don't want to. They're making another game, right? Like that's where they're focused on. But I think this is maybe they wouldn't have hated for it to work better than it is, right?
Well, no,
like if it
certainly not.
Maybe been closer to a season than an event in it's a higher number attraction, but ultimately it brought back average players. Like Ghost I'm using the thing average player number count. The average amount of people that are playing the game again went back up a little bit, which is basically all they need to focus on until season 5 comes out.
Well, there's something that a kind of strange thing I want to factor in. And I think we're gonna have to look at a year, I guess. So February 27th. You know what that is? That's a higher peak than season 4. That's the anniversary this year. And yeah, it was a big anniversary, 5th year. Also added a new DLC. And this is going to be a really weird thing to bring up, but we don't know when the next DLC is going to be at all. And I absolutely understand why they wouldn't do them for these updates. But I think they have some kind of effect, like genuinely. People see that it's something that they get. DLCs get trailers, for example, and they get people focused on the game and like something else to sort of open up their wallets for. This sounds really weird, but I wonder if they're thinking about that. And I reckon they'd be really scared to try and like put out a new DLC before season 5, though. I don't think they will.
That's because it's a bad idea.
It is a bad idea.
No, I'm
and
sorry,
we can kind of stop it there. But what I was going to say is, if they were, it would be like the anniversary or something. But
the latest DLC they just added has been very poorly received, right? So badly they had to redo it, and even then, people were like, "Oh, all right, fine, whatever," right? Like first of all, that's pretty bad. The most recent DLC wasn't even up to the normal quality. Second of all, if the only thing it's not really the only thing, but if one of the only things we hear about them and the way they interact with this game is the 2 maintenance patches and then a DLC in the middle, people would not be fucking happy.
That's why I think they haven't even talked about it. I think they know that they sort of need to. I think they know that for a while they need to sort of roll with the punches a little bit, possibly until Rogue Core comes out. They kind of need to roll with the fact that Deep Rock's gonna it's going to be simmering for a little bit, and I think they just need to roll with that genuinely, because I think it would do a lot of damage actually if they tried to push out a DLC around this. I mean, any time before season 5. Yeah,
it's not an option. It's not on the table. If they know what's good for them and if they are ghost ship, right?
Obviously, there's a difference between what's good for them and what's good for Deep Rock, and right now I think they're just focusing on they're focusing on what's good for their games right now, and I think I respect that. And obviously we'll have to sort of consolidate that for ourselves soon, but in terms of the actual reception to the update, it's at the very least positive. And I think that's what matters, really. I mean, it's something that matters, I should say. That's the whole point of half the point of this video is telling people that this is only half the story, because it is. And I think what should not be undervalued is sort of just keeping people happy and putting out content updates that are well received, which this has been. And I think that shouldn't be undervalued, even if it doesn't seem to have much of an outreach in terms of gaining new players or bringing old players back. It's kind of interesting because, it's interesting that just the way it doesn't have much. The way a quality of the update doesn't have much bearing on the player numbers is actually something. That's sort of what I was meaning to say. But yeah.
With season 3 being as huge as it is, and yet this maintenance update is not that. Even though this maintenance update added significantly more that players wanted than season 3. And yet ultimately,
in a lot of ways, this is kind of that season toggle feature is something that I think there's a lot of people who haven't come back who would benefit from that. And they kind of just don't know because they either don't have the interest, or they either don't know because they've lost a lot of interest, or I don't know. Maybe they just don't care. Even though this update has added something that is going to circumvent maybe a big issue that they had. But that's kind of their loss, in a way.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, as long as the numbers don't downtrend, then it should be alright. But if ultimately season 5 comes out and the game is notably worse off, then because it's going forward, then what are they meant to do, right? Because we were thinking that the future of this game would be like one big season and then like maintenance to like keep it interesting throughout the year. But if
Yeah.
this proves that it won't work and
Also,
that it will downtrend,
that's a format that takes way too long to test. You know, that's a format.
yeah.
You cannot safely gauge how well that works because the game could die before you actually get a read on if that works or not. I mean, I would say not necessarily because obviously we actually do have a higher frequency of updates. Technically, we do. We haven't actually experienced that yet. We'll only have truly experienced a higher frequency of updates once season 5 is out. I would say, truly. Obviously, the next maintenance update coming out would still be a much shorter gap between seasons, but it's still going to take getting to season 5 to actually feel like there's been a really good pace of updates. Which is why I'm hoping that that does spell a good uptrend in the fact that there's going to have been a good cadence of like content and changes being made leading up to season 5. So I hope it can actually build, is what I'm hoping. But that depends on how, because the next maintenance update should coincide with roughly maybe a bit of gap on one end. It should roughly coincide though with season 5 just starting to be marketed, just about. So I hope it can sort of begin to build in a way. Oh, look, an update just came out, and sort of season 5 is having like things planted for it as well at the same time. I hope. So I don't know, but that's something we'll have to wait and see for.
Yeah, and I think right now the main concern is that if the numbers start going like below double thousand digits, like it's got like 10,000 there. If it starts going back below that, ultimately that is a sign of the game dying, because generally it has been going up steadily. The plateau of the amount of players has been going up, and if come season 5, first of all, if season 5's peak isn't higher than season 3's, or at least equal, if before then the plateau goes down to like 8k like it used to be before season 3, like even though these numbers aren't the whole picture, they are very important for the game, right? Like you don't want them to keep going down or the game will die. And right now they've slightly gone up, which is good, because if they didn't go up at all with this maintenance update, then it would have mean that they would keep going down until season 5.
Well, it's weird. They've more so just been substantiated. They haven't like notably gone up. They've just been sort of, I would just say, been hooked back from going down. Hopefully for a while. I'd say Christmas does represent a small opportunity in that they tend to do a little bit more for Christmas and other events, and that can work in their favor a little bit. And then we'll sort of just go from there. I do think though the lowest point is probably going to be. I don't think the lunar event's going to do anything. Is what I'm saying. But at the same time, you do go from that straight into like the anniversary, and then it's pretty much like it's actually going to be the people who are playing the game and paying attention to the game. For those groups of people, which we sort of represent, or at least we represent one half of that. The game's going to be like in sort of a constant like changing of states, for like for a while. We're going to go straight. We're going to be going from this pretty much straight to Christmas, then to the lunar event, then to the anniversary, then to the maintenance like update. Like every month is going to be rough. Like pretty much every month is going to be substantiated. Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is like we've got this update in November, Christmas, December, lunar event January, anniversary February, then the maintenance update. Yeah. Although obviously that's going to be sort of like a situation of how much do those things really do. And I think if more people knew about the maintenance updates, they would see like, oh, there's actually like the game's going to be pretty playable for a while. I don't know. I don't really know what that means. I think it means something. There's going to be something every month, but
like for the player that has tuned out, there isn't that much the maintenance is for, because I think the peak number players, like you got the average players, and then you got the peak players. We'll go with, and the peak players aren't as cool as they sound. They're the players who will load up Deep Rock for about a week on and off, and then they'll forget about it. Right? Those players, the maintenance update does nothing for, because the maintenance update, the only tangible stuff it really added is for let's go with the average players, the players that will play consistently. They'll try out these new overclocks. They will actually make use of the new weapon maintenance system, right? They will have completed the pass and therefore able to turn off the thing and use the switch, right? For the people that just pop in and out whenever there's a new stuff occurring, then it's not doing much for them, and I think that's why the peak players never really went up. Like, if you're someone that doesn't really care about Deep Rock in that kind of way, it's just a game you play, then it's not really done much.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I wasn't inherently trying to big it up. I was just sort of painting the picture of like there is going to be a reason to play Deep Rock every month. I mean, because I think the Easter event will sort of will cross over a little bit into April and May. There's going to be reason to play Deep Rock every month for like a while, and all I'm saying is it should be able to easily maintain where it's at currently, at least, is what I'm saying. And if it can't, that would be weird because of how much is going on. Like on a technical level,
really done. Considering Oktoberfest and Halloween has occurred, and yet September and October the numbers are still trending.
Well, it's just sort of the path of something every month leading straight into an update. That should help. That should maintain people.
Sure,
it's slightly different to before, where it's like, there's roughly one every other month leading up to a season. I can see why that wouldn't maintain people. But it's basically going to be, the game is going to be, as long as people can keep in mind it's an update pretty much right after the anniversary, it's going to be pretty stacked. And I just feel like it shouldn't dip, really, between now and the next update. It really shouldn't. But we'll only find out with the next one, because that's when we're next going to look at these. I think that makes sense. It's not going to be roughly be an update thing. Sort of see where things are at. Unless, because I'm not going to completely starve myself from looking at these. And if for some reason in January it's like 5,000 players, we might have to say something. But until such a horrible disaster happens, that was the, I don't know, some Steam charts rundown. I don't know what I'm going to call this. I don't know what I'm going to call. I guess I think update results is something I want to sort of frame it around. Maybe something like that. The consequences.
It isn't really showing much of the results, so it's probably not the best idea.
Talking about, that's the whole point.
Yeah, but it doesn't really paint a picture. It sketches one out, ready for, I don't know, the community to then paint on.
Your metaphors are unequaled in their fluidity and beauty.
Thank you.
I hope we can hear more of those.
No more.
No more metaphors.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the last metaphor you get from Tyler.
Yeah.
No, okay.
Plus,
we're gonna. What could you possibly have to say?
Well, there's one more stat that we didn't bring up. 24-hour peak was 17,000. And that's kind of that less than the previous peak. So it is kind of trending downwards again, maybe.
Well, hold on, because this doesn't represent 24-hour peaks at all. So we don't really know how good that is.
The peak players of the last 30 days was 22,000.
That's true.
I mean,
that's true.
It is kind of yeah. Actually, that might just be more like times of the week. It looks like weekends are just generally higher. So last 24 hours was Friday, so it's probably going to go back up a little bit. Seems more time of the week and time of the day. It's quite interesting, actually, but that's not really the point.
That's crazy, bro.
Shut your mouth. We're ending this.
Yeah, we are. I think because we can actually keep this on the brisker side of our videos, at the very least. Anyway, yeah. So this was whatever the hell this is. I guess you'll find out once it's uploaded. I'll find out as well. But of course, if you enjoy, what the hell is going out there? Seriously.
Violence.
Anyway, yeah, let's do the cynical routine. If you enjoyed this, please make sure to like, subscribe, and if you want to stay on top of everything to do with these wonderful games, then also click the bell. And then we do the goodbye thing. That's goodbye from me. That's goodbye from Tyler. Goodbye.
Hey.
You should say goodbye.
No.
All right, he doesn't get to say goodbye. Bye.